Love is something I find difficult to grasp. After all, it's just an emotion, isn't it? So how can an emotion make you act irrationally? How can love drive you to do things that you'd never consider when you're thinking clearly? I suppose it's too late for me to be asking these questions now. The damage is already done. I met Stella in middle school and started dating her in 9th grade. By the time 10th grade rolled around, we were officially a couple. We had a breakup during that year, but by the start of 11th grade, we were back together. Despite breaking up twice more that year, we were back on by the beginning of 12th grade. Whenever we were apart, we'd date other people, but that only seemed to fuel our reconciliation. I'd get infuriated and jealous if I saw her with someone else, even if I was with another girl at the time. The same went for her. She'd get upset if she saw me with someone else, even if she was with another guy. This pattern usually led to us running into each other and having the usual, "How could you?" and "what about you?" arguments, which would inevitably lead to us making up and getting back together. We celebrated our 18th birthdays a week apart, and on the night of our senior prom, we lost our virginities to each other. From that night on, whenever we found ourselves alone together, clothes were quickly shed. After graduation, we went our separate ways. She went to Michigan State, and I went to Eastern Michigan. Despite the distance, we'd still meet up on weekends and during breaks, and our physical connection remained as strong as ever. In our sophomore year, while I was at a party, some guys from our high school graduating class, who were now at State, asked me how I could have been so foolish as to let someone like Stella go. Curious, I asked them what they meant, and they explained that Stella had a reputation for being a 3-date wonder. Apparently, if you made it to the 3rd date with her, you were almost guaranteed to get something more. That was a surprise to me, because I had always thought Stella and I were in a committed relationship, being faithful to each other. When Phil and Ralph finished telling me about Stella, I responded with, "That's why I let her go. She just couldn't keep her legs together." Of course, that wasn't true. I hadn't known anything of the sort. But I didn't want them thinking I was completely out of touch about Stella. The next weekend, when Stella came home, I confronted her with what I'd learned. She replied, "So what? I like sex, and you're here while I'm not. Besides, you don't own me. You haven't proposed or put a ring on my finger, and it's your fault anyway." "My fault?" "Yeah, Frankie. You took my virginity and got me used to having sex. So what about you? After all the intimacy we shared, are you really telling me you've been keeping it in your pants while I've been away?" "Yes, Stella, that's exactly what I'm going to tell you. I thought we were a couple, and I wasn't about to cheat on you." "You wouldn't be cheating, Frankie, because we aren't engaged. We're just really good friends who happen to make love when we can. If you ask me to marry you, I'll say yes, but not until after college. Until then, I'm going to explore, and you should too. I'm all yours when I'm home, but while we're apart, I'm going to date, and you should do the same. It's better to get all that curiosity out of your system before we settle down. That way, we won't have to worry about the 7-year itch. Now, do you want to make love or keep talking?" At that moment, I made the first of many poor decisions regarding Stella. I decided she was right and that I should follow her lead. Over the rest of our time in college, I dated other people when Stella wasn't around and made love to her whenever she came home. I learned a lot from dating other people. I found that Helen Liss and Roberta Price were more skilled than Stella in certain intimate ways. Carol Wilder enjoyed making love in risky situations, and although the thrill of potentially getting caught scared me, it was also incredibly exciting. Overall, I had a very fulfilling and active sex life when Stella wasn't around, and I even found myself questioning whether I'd be able to stay faithful to her after we got married. Stella never inquired about my activities during her absences, and while I knew she was having her own experiences while away, I never brought it up. Although I was a bit frustrated by some things, we managed to navigate those years. 2 months after graduation, we exchanged our vows in front of 83 family members and friends. The first few years passed, and I felt that Stella and I had a strong and stable marriage. Our sex life was deeply satisfying, as we both applied the lessons we learned from our earlier experiences to our relationship with each other. In our third year, Stella came home from work one night with news that she was signing up for a couple of night classes at EMU. They're courses that will help me get a promotion. John, my boss, says if I have them on my resume, I'll be a shoo-in for Marcia's job when she leaves at the end of the year. The classes are on Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30, so you'll be on your own for dinner since I'll head straight to school from work. How long will this last? Just one term, and the best part is that the company will cover the costs. Stella took the classes, got the promotion, and everything was smooth for another year. Then our routine was upended again. One of Stella's old classmates from state, Anna, moved into town and got in touch. Stella started meeting Anna for drinks after work, and eventually invited Anna and her husband over for a Sunday barbecue. Ever meet someone you instantly dislike? That was my reaction to Anna. I hadn't even heard her speak yet, and I was already put off. She was loud, domineering, and treated her husband like a servant. All I heard from him while he was there was, "Yes, dear," "Whatever you say, dear," and "Let me handle that for you." I couldn't imagine what his life was like with Anna. Despite my strong feelings, I knew better than to tell Stella to keep Anna away. So when Stella asked what I thought after they left, I simply said, "They seem like a nice couple," and left it at that. About 2 months later, during another weekend barbecue, my life took a sharp turn. I had handed off the grilling duties to Dennis, Anna's husband, and went inside to use the bathroom. With the mild weather, the bathroom window was cracked open about 8 inches. As I was inside, I overheard Stella and Anna walking by the window. I caught part of their conversation. "Won't matter because Frank is a clueless twit. I can..." Then they were out of earshot, and I missed the rest. So, I was a clueless twit, was I? I couldn't help but wonder what other wonderful things my loving wife might be saying about me. I brooded over it for a few days, and then I did something I never thought I'd do. I researched how to tap my home phone line. I wasn't concerned about infidelity. Honestly, that thought never crossed my mind. But I was curious about what else Stella thought of me. Since Stella left for work an hour after I did, it gave her time to chat without me around. On Tuesdays, I bowled, and on Thursdays, I had my lodge meetings, Fraternal Order of Eagles, if anyone's interested. This gave Stella plenty of time to talk on the phone while I was occupied. I installed the tap on Sunday, while Stella was out grocery shopping, and waited to see what I'd uncover. I didn't get a chance to listen to any recordings until Wednesday. Stella called me at work to say she'd be a little late. When I got home, I listened to the recordings from Monday, Tuesday, and that day. Monday's conversations revealed that Stella planned to visit Anna's house while I was at bowling. "I'm looking forward to it," Stella said. "It's going to be a blast, honey," Anna replied, "and once you see it, you'll want to try it yourself." Got to run. Don't want to be late for work. I need to make sure John has a good start to his day. Anna laughed and said, "You go, you slut." This left me with a lot to wonder about. Why was Anna calling my wife a slut? What did she know about Stella that I didn't? What was Stella going to want to do after seeing whatever it was? And what did "I need to make sure John has a good start to his day" even mean? Tuesday morning's recording only mentioned that Stella and someone named Barb, whom I didn't know, would be at Anna's around 6:30. Wednesday's recording provided more details, but left me with even more questions. I still can't believe it. I saw it with my own eyes, but it's hard to process. Men aren't supposed to act like that. Dennis didn't used to be like that, but I've trained him well. If you think last night was something, just wait until you see what I have him do on Thursday night. Can you give me a hint? Just get your husband all fired up tonight and tomorrow morning. You'll want him eager and ready to pounce the moment you walk through the door on Thursday night. I wasn't sure what Stella had in mind for Thursday night, but she clearly took Anna's advice to heart. On Wednesday night, she made a real effort to excite me, and then woke me up early on Thursday. She stopped just short of finishing things and said, "I want you ready and eager for me when I get home tonight." I had some errands to take care of after work, so Stella was already home when I arrived. She met me at the door in nothing but high heels and thigh-high nylons. I hope you didn't overexert yourself at work because tonight you've got quite a task ahead of you. I wasn't sure what had her so fired up, but we ended up making love 3 times that night, which was far more than usual for us. We typically averaged 3 times a week, with maybe an extra round on weekends. I didn't get a chance to listen to Thursday and Friday's recordings until Saturday, when Stella was at her regular hair appointment. I took advantage of the quiet house to review the tapes. Thursday's recording was uneventful, featuring just a conversation between Stella and Barb. Barb mentioned she couldn't make it that night because her husband was insisting she attend a company event with him. We need to find out how Anna manages things so we won't have to deal with men making us do things. Our men making us do anything? I've never made Stella do anything. In fact, it was usually the other way around. Friday's first call was a wake-up call, and the first sign that Stella and I were in serious trouble. Barb reached out to Stella to find out what had transpired at Anna's the night before. You thought Tuesday was wild? Last night was over the top compared to Tuesday. It would be like comparing first grade to grad school. I hadn't been there 2 minutes when the doorbell rang, and Anna went to answer it. She came back with 2 guys named Eddie and Jared. She asked if the 2 of them were ready to do it, and they both smiled and started to undress. Anna told Dennis to strip, and he did, and then we all went into the bedroom, and we are making love together. Now I just need to figure out how to get Frank to do something like that. How do you plan to do that? I'm not sure yet, but I'm working on it. Frank doesn't seem like the type to do that. How would she know that? I didn't even know who Barb was. So how could she judge my character? Then came the next revelation about what Stella really thought of me. What can I say? Being able to dominate him like that really turns me on. I need to go now if I'm going to start John's day off right. There it was again. What did she need to do to start her boss's day? On Saturday morning, I played golf and listened to the conversation between Anna and Stella. That call was the turning point for our marriage. Stella mentioned to Anna that she was brainstorming ways to get me to be more like Dennis. I'm not sure you can, Stell. Dennis is naturally submissive, which is why I married him. I knew I could boss him around and get him to do whatever I wanted. Frank doesn't seem like the type who would willingly do what I make Dennis do. He's very gullible. That's one of the reasons I married him. I knew I could control him when he believed my excuses about seeing other guys while we were at state. He even bought my story about taking evening classes for a promotion at work. While it was true that I used that time to get ahead, the real reason was different. You never told me the real story behind that. John's wife was pregnant and couldn't have sex. He told me that if I acted as his sexual outlet until she was cleared to resume intimacy, he would promote me and give me a significant raise. We kept it up even after his wife had the baby. Now, I have to provide this for John every morning to start his day right, on top of our long lunches. And Frank has no idea? I told you, he's a clueless twit. Well, you know him better than I do, but I'd suggest working up to it very, very slowly. I had installed the tap because, after overhearing that conversation through the bathroom window, I was eager to find out what else Stella was saying about me. What I discovered was eye-opening. To her, I was a clueless twit and a wimp whom she hoped to turn into a subservient cuckold. She had no chance of making that happen, and I was already devising a plan to make her think I might go along with her desires. I'd have to wait for her to initiate her campaign to transform me into someone like Dennis, but she was in for a major surprise. I wasn't surprised at all when Stella initiated things on Saturday after her hair appointment. I'm feeling incredibly horny for some reason. How about a late dinner after we work up an appetite? She suggested. Gee, Stell, I'm not sure. Maybe if you twisted my arm or something, I joked. Asshole, she said with a playful grin as she grabbed my arm and led me to the bedroom. We made love, and afterward, as we lay there snuggled up, she asked, Are you happy with me, Frank? Very happy. Do you ever regret marrying me because it means you don't get to be with other women? I immediately realized where the conversation was headed and decided to steer it. No, I don't regret marrying you. I admit there are other women I've found attractive, but I've never acted on those feelings. I would never do anything to jeopardize our marriage. Why do you ask? Promise me you won't hate me? I could never hate you. You should know that by now. The reason I was so horny when I got home? I ran into one of my college flings, and it reminded me how thrilling it was to have a different guy now and then. I was just curious if you ever have similar thoughts. When you say you saw one of your old lovers, do you mean you actually met up and slept with him? Oh no, nothing like that. I was early for my appointment, so I stopped by the Starbucks up the street. Kevin was there, and we chatted about what we've been up to since college. He mentioned getting together sometime. And you said? I said no, of course. Like you, I wouldn't do anything to risk our marriage. I can tell from your tone and the look on your face that you wanted to say yes. She looked away for a moment before admitting, You're right. I did want to say yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from how this conversation started and your confession, it seems like you'd like to experience something different from time to time. Is that it? She hesitated, then said, Yes. Seeing Kevin reminded me of how much I enjoyed being with different guys. There's something thrilling about meeting a new man and wondering how he will measure up to others I've been with. Is he bigger or smaller? Does he have stamina? How good is he at this or that? It's not about love or affection. It's purely about sex. Meeting Kevin wouldn't be quite the same, though. You've already been with him. True, but people can change over time. It would be like encountering a new version of him, not knowing what to expect. Be honest with me, Stell. If there was no chance I would ever find out, would you have agreed to meet Kevin some night? Honestly? I nodded. Yes, I would have, but only if there was absolutely no chance you could ever find out. So, you'd love to explore other men as long as it didn't endanger our marriage. Am I right? She looked at me for several seconds before finally saying, As long as it didn't cost me you and our marriage. All right. We've established where we stand. I haven't pursued any of the women I've been attracted to because I didn't want to risk losing you or our marriage, and you haven't been with other men for the same reason. This suggests we might be ideal candidates for what's called an open marriage. An open marriage? What's that? It's where we both agree to have sexual relationships with others, as long as everything is transparent and honest, and we always come back to each other. You'd consider something like that? To be honest, even though there are several women I fantasize about, I'd probably never act on those fantasies, even if given the chance. So you're saying that while you might not pursue other men, I'm free to? I'm saying it's unlikely I'll act on my fantasies, but you're welcome to explore, as long as you always come home to me. Why would you allow me to do that if you're not interested yourself? Because I love you and want you to be happy. I also trust you to come back to me, which means I don't have to worry about our relationship. There is one rule, though. If you ever bring a lover home, you need to call me in advance so I can decide whether to stay in or go out. Why would you want to stay home? I'm not sure I would, but I've heard that some men enjoy watching their wives with other men. Who knows? I might find I like it. Do you really mean that? Just thinking about it is making me hard, I admitted. Stella laughed. On Sunday, I told Stella I was heading out for a couple of hours to shop for a new lawnmower at Home Depot or Lowe's. It was a lie. I just wanted to give her some time alone to make calls to Anna or Barb. I already had a plan in mind, but I needed to gather as much information as possible about Stella's intentions. I was relying on the phone tap to provide the details I needed. Later that evening, while Stella was in the shower, I checked the phone tap. As expected, she had called Anna. You won't believe it. I didn't even have to work for it, Stella said. I told him a story about running into Kevin Butler and mentioned that he was one of the guys I slept with in college. Kevin Butler? Wasn't he the one who had you pulling trains at the Phi Delta house? Yeah, those were wild times. Anyway, I worked the conversation around to thoughts of being with other people, and the clueless twit actually suggested an open marriage. Can you believe it? He even said he might watch. What are you planning to do? I'm thinking of bringing a guy home to see how he reacts. If Frank watches and doesn't freak out, I'll know I can eventually turn him into a version of Dennis. Who are you going to bring home? At first I considered John, but I think it's better to keep that separate. Maybe Eddie? He's quite a catch. I'm sure Eddie would be up for it. He loves being with married women in front of their husbands. I'll set it up for you. When do you want to do it? I'm thinking Wednesday. Tomorrow would make Frank suspect I'd already planned it before our talk, and Tuesday he has bowling. Wednesday might seem quick, but I'll just tell him I wanted to do it before he changed his mind. You know Eddie will trash talk in front of Frank, right? Yeah, and if Frank can handle it, I'll know I'm one step closer to turning him into a Dennis clone. There it was. Wednesday would mark the beginning, and if I played my role correctly, Stella would set herself up for the final act. Hopefully, it would all be resolved within a week or two. That night, after we'd made love, Stella turned to me and said, "I need a huge favor, baby." "Name it, my love." "There's a guy at work who's been hitting on me for ages. I'd like him to be the first one I bring into this open marriage thing, but I'm scared. I'm worried that if I actually go through with it, you might throw me out. I need to know you're really okay with it." "So, what's the favor?" "I want you to be here with me when I do it." "I told you I'm fine with it, Stell." "I know you did, but I'd feel a lot better if you were here." "I guess I could be there, but what if this guy doesn't want to go along with it if I'm around? He's been pursuing me for so long that I'm confident he'll agree to whatever I suggest." "Well, this will be as good a time as any to see if I like watching. When do you want to do it?" "You bowl on Tuesday, so I'll aim for Wednesday, okay? I'll have to miss my lodge meeting, but keeping you happy is more important, so I guess that works." "Thank you, baby," she said. Monday night unfolded just as I had suspected. Eddie was excited about the idea, even if it means you'll be watching. He did ask if you'd be hiding in the closet or in the room with us. "In the room with you, of course. I'll just set up a chair where I can see everything. If it turns out that watching isn't my thing, I'll simply leave." I'm already excited just thinking about it. Let's head to the bedroom for dessert. I was surprised at how the prospect of deceiving me seemed to turn her on so much. We ended up making love twice that night and again on Tuesday morning. As I was heading out for work, Stella mentioned she'd be going to Anna's after work, but would be home by the time I got back. However, she didn't manage to get home in time, so I took the opportunity to listen to the recordings from Monday and Tuesday. From Monday's recording, I learned that Anna had spoken with Eddie, who was enthusiastic about the plan. Anna had given Stella Eddie's contact details and mentioned he was waiting for her call. Stella said she'd reach out to him when she got to work. Tuesday's recording brought more insight. "I spoke with Eddie yesterday, and we set everything up for Wednesday night. He and Jared are coming over tonight. How do you feel about sharing?" "Both of them?" Stella asked. "Yes, if you're okay with that." "I'm fine with it." "That sounds great. It'll give me a preview of what I plan to have Frank do." There was more, but I had enough. I was already in bed when Stella came home, and we made love once she joined me. I left the house early before Stella woke and spent the day mentally preparing for the evening ahead. It wasn't going to be easy, but if I wanted my plan to succeed, I had to follow through with Stella's expectations. That evening, when I came home from work, Stella had prepared a light supper. She opened her housecoat to reveal a new set of lingerie, a cutaway bra, crotchless panties, a garter belt, nylons, and strappy heels. "What do you think?" she asked with a playful smile. "Will this turn him on?" "Any man it wouldn't turn on is already dead," I replied, thinking to myself, "You never dressed like that for me." Eddie arrived at 7, and he smirked when Stella introduced us. Stella gave him a long, passionate kiss and then said, "I can't wait. Let's get to the bedroom." And we all went there. My biggest surprise was that I did get turned on watching my unfaithful of a wife loved another man. I didn't have to fake sitting there and pretending. It went on like that for 3 hours, and then Stella called a halt to things. I've got to get some rest before I go to work tomorrow. As Eddie dressed, he looked me squarely in the eye and said, "She's my girl now, and I'll be with her whenever I want. Got it?" I stared at the floor and nodded in agreement before getting ready for bed as Stella escorted him out. When Stella returned, she was beaming. "You enjoyed it. I saw you watching. You have to make love to me now. You just have to," she urged. "I'm not sure, Stell. I don't think I'm ready to follow another man's lead just yet. But I'm willing to be with you to see what it's like to have seconds," I replied. "I understand, but please just try it for me," she pleaded. I hesitated before agreeing. "Maybe just a small taste." "It wasn't too bad," I admitted, "but it's definitely going to take some getting used to." She hadn't lied. She was horny. We are made love, and as I was falling asleep, I was thinking, I'm going to miss the girl. It wasn't until Friday morning that I finally had a chance to listen to the phone intercepts. Wednesday's call detailed what she had done on Tuesday night and what she hoped to do on Wednesday night. Thursday's call focused on Eddie's visit. There was more, but it was all variations on the same theme, making it clear what my wife really thought of me. That Friday night, over dinner, Stella asked if we could do it again. "I suppose," I replied. "Eddie again?" "Probably. He's reliable. Is that okay with you?" "If it makes you happy, my love." "You're the best," she said, her gratitude evident. "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but you're absolutely the best." We made love that night, and I figured I'd take every opportunity to do so, not knowing when I'd get another chance after everything was over. Saturday and Sunday were quiet. Aside from playing golf Sunday morning, I mostly stayed around the house, and except for a couple of hours when Stella went grocery shopping, she was home too. On Monday, while Stella was in the shower, I reviewed the recordings from the weekend. There was nothing recorded on Saturday, but on Sunday, while I was out golfing, Stella had a conversation with Anna. "He's fine with me doing it again, so I'm planning to set us up for Wednesday. This time, I'm going to get him more involved." That night, Stella told me she had arranged something for Eddie on Wednesday, and I decided to stir things up a bit. "I don't know, Stell. Wednesday is my lodge meeting night, and I missed last week's for you." "Please, Frank. I've already told him Wednesday would work for us. Just this once. I promise I won't ask for Wednesday again. I'll think about it. I need to call Bob Morgan to find out what I missed last week and if there's anything crucial for this Wednesday." I saw the disappointment on her face and decided I'd agree to Wednesday, but I was going to make her sweat a bit first. After dinner, I went into the den and pretended to work on some tasks I had brought home, then made a few fake phone calls. An hour and a half later, I emerged and told Stella I'd agree to Wednesday, but that she needed to plan her other activities for different days from now on. She rewarded me with a memorable night before we finally fell asleep. On Tuesday, when I came home from bowling, Stella was waiting for me in my favorite outfit, nothing but CFM pumps. I could tell I was getting sloppy seconds, but I played along as if I hadn't noticed. Wednesday morning, over breakfast, Stella said, "You know I love you, right?" "Of course." "I love you so much that I'd never do anything to upset you, but I have a request that might." "What's that?" "I want you to be more involved in what you're letting me do." "God, Stell, I don't know if I could do something like that." "Think about it, baby. It would really show me that you are okay with what I'm doing." "I'll think about it, Stell, but I'm making no promises that it will happen." As distasteful as it was going to be, I was going to have to do it. I needed Stella in the right frame of mind in order to make what I wanted to happen work the way I wanted it to. The evening with Eddie started out with Eddie lying to me. "I told you when I was last here your wife was my bitch now, right?" I nodded my head, yes. I loved her in the supply closet at work on both Thursday and Friday, and she loved it and begged for more. We took a long lunch Monday, and I fucked her 3 times, and last night I loved her 4 times while you were rolling that stupid ball. Then we are make love. Stella walked him out while I showered and in bed. When she came back into the room, she asked, "Are you going to make love with me?" "Not this time, love. I've got to get used to the idea that I just handled another man." "Don't push it, Stell. I'll work up to it, but I'm not ready yet." "But you will take sloppy seconds, won't you? I need to make love to you when we do these things. You're my man, and I have to make sure that I prove it to you." I did loved her, and she sucked me hard for a second time, and again I thought about how much I was going to miss that part of our marriage. On Friday, Stella said she had a baby shower to attend, or so she claimed. I took advantage of her absence to listen to the phone calls from Thursday and Friday mornings. "Oh my God, Anna, I swear Frank is almost ready to be a Dennis clone," Stella said. "You'd better be careful. If you keep using Eddie, your husband might start thinking he's being replaced by a steady boyfriend," Anna warned. "You're right. I should see if I can get Jared to join in. I'm so close, Anna. So close to having my own submissive slave." She laughed and added, "I'm even thinking about dressing him up in a dress, nylons, and high heels. I've got to run now if I don't want to be late for work." It was clear from that call that Stella was more than ready, even though I had initially thought I'd need more time to prepare her. I stayed awake, waiting for Stella to come home. We made love on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and while Stella was showering for work on Monday morning, I listened to the weekend's phone conversations. There was nothing noteworthy from Saturday, but on Sunday, Anna gave Stella Jared's phone number and mentioned he was expecting her call. Stella said she would reach out to him from work later that day. That evening at dinner, Stella asked when we could do it again. "Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Take your pick. But you bowl on Tuesday and have meetings on Wednesday. The Fall-Winter League ended last Tuesday, and the Spring-Summer League doesn't start for another 6 weeks. Also, there's no meeting this Wednesday because all the area officers are at a state convention." "Wednesday, then?" "Works for me." "Can I see someone else, or does it have to be Eddie?" "What's wrong with Eddie?" "He's becoming too possessive. He's starting to see himself as my steady boyfriend." "Well, we definitely can't have that. Do you have a replacement in mind?" "There's a guy who works on the loading dock named Jared. He's hit on me a few times. I think I'll surprise him and take him up on it. After you explain the situation to him, he might not be so eager. I guess I'll find out." "Don't be silly, Stell. Any man who's alive and breathing would want you, even if it means in a room full of onlookers." "You say the sweetest things, baby. I think I'll keep you." I almost laughed. I was already emotionally distant, and she just didn't know it yet. On Monday, during dinner, Stella told me that Jared was on board. "It was just like you said, baby. He told me he'd be happy to have me anywhere, even on the courthouse steps in broad daylight. He'd give me an hour to gather a crowd." Tuesday morning, Stella said she'd be stopping for drinks with Anna after work, and they might end up at Anna's place for some card games. We set it up before I knew that bowling was over. When I got home from work and found Stella wasn't there, I checked the recorder for any messages. I called Jared, and he's in. I'm meeting him tonight to go over the scenario I want to play out on Wednesday night. I just shook my head. How could she have been with me this long and not know me better? Stella wasn't usually this clueless. She had to sense that my recent behavior wasn't the real me, that something about this whole situation wasn't right. Oh well, she would find out soon enough. On Wednesday morning, Stella told me Jared would arrive at 7 and that she was excited about the evening. I smiled and said I was looking forward to it too. That evening, at 5:40, I called Stella and said there had been an emergency at work and that I would be late, possibly very late. "But what about Jared?" "Just enjoy yourself, sweetie. I'll make it up to you next time." I headed to the sports bar, had a few drinks, and watched the Red Wings play the Avalanche. I got home at 10:15 to find Stella waiting up for me. "I haven't cleaned up yet, baby." "Not tonight, Stell. After the mess at work, I'm just not in the mood. Honestly, I'd need to be here and see things firsthand to get worked up enough. I'll make it up to you on Friday." On Friday? Yes, sweetie, I'll make sure you get what you deserve. Will you at least take sloppy seconds? I can do that, Stell. Thursday morning over breakfast, I said to Stella, on Friday night, I'm going all out for you, baby. I'm not naive. I know what your plan is. Don't bother denying it because I know exactly what's up. Stella looked at me in stunned silence as I continued. Well, I've got a surprise for you. I've always wondered what it would be like, so tomorrow night, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. Oh my God, I can't believe this. You're right, and those are things I'd love to see. Who do you want? Eddie would definitely do it, but you've never met Jared. Neither of them. Once I figured out your real intentions, I started making other plans. I don't know Eddie at all, and as you've pointed out, I've never met Jared. The last thing I want is to walk into a place where Eddie or Jared are with friends, and they point me out and snicker. They'd talk about how much of a wimp I am, and soon everyone would know, and I'd be embarrassed to walk around in public. No, I've got a better plan. You've never met him, but I'm sure you've heard me mention Phil Martin. He's one of my lodge brothers, and I trust him with my life. Actually, I am trusting him with my life. He's agreed to do it, and I trust him to keep it confidential. He'll be here at 7. Between now and then, you need to think about everything you want me to do, and I'll make it happen, no matter what. She stared at me, stunned. I don't know what to say. You've completely caught me off guard with this. All you need to say is, thank you, my love. I can do better than that. I'll call in sick and spend the day with you. I'd love that, but I'll have to settle for a hot night tonight instead. Owning the business means I have to be there, even if it's just to unlock the door and let the staff in. Then you'd better prepare for tonight and take plenty of vitamins because I plan on leaving you unable to walk by the time I'm done. And she almost did. I fell asleep utterly exhausted at 1:30. I spent most of Friday preparing, and by 7, I was home when Phil rang the doorbell. Stella was naked except for her "come love me" pumps, lounging on the couch. After Phil took in the scene and I made the introductions, I said, let's move this to the bedroom and get started. Stella, beaming with excitement, got up from the couch, took Phil by the hand, and led him to the bedroom. As they headed that way, I added, go ahead and begin. What I have planned for later will take some courage, and fortunately, I have a bottle of it downstairs. It's labeled Jim Beam, and it's almost full. Hurry back, lover. I can't wait, Stella said, and I replied, neither can I, sweetie. It's going to be quite the evening. I left the room and headed to the basement. I grabbed a PBR from the mini fridge next to my workbench, opened the cabinet above it, and turned on the equipment inside. Settling into a folding chair with my beer, I watched the live feed from the bedroom's spy cam. Stella was undressing Phil, and soon they were making love. Meanwhile, I ran through my mental checklist to ensure I hadn't overlooked anything. Cleaned out checking and savings? Check. Cleaned out safe deposit box? Check. Canceled all joint credit cards? Check. Final meeting with attorney to ensure all paperwork was complete? Check. Apartment rented? Check. Clothes packed and loaded in the car? Check. Yes, I had it all covered. The only remaining task was to return with a trailer for the larger items, like my toolbox, air compressor, floor jack, and jack stands. Stella might make it challenging, but my attorney assured me that obtaining a court order and having a deputy accompany me to serve it and supervise while I collected my belongings would be straightforward. On the screen, I saw Stella glance around and finally realize I was missing. Phil walked over to his clothes, retrieved an envelope from his suit coat pocket, and returned to Stella. He handed her the envelope, and she looked up at him, puzzled. What's this? You've been served, Phil said, before turning back to his clothes and starting to dress as Stella asked, served? What do you mean, served? Open the envelope. All your answers are in there, Phil said. As Stella opened it, she asked, why are you giving this to me? It's my job, although I have to admit, this was the most enjoyable service I've ever done. I even got an extra 100 out of it. An extra 100? What does that mean? I get a flat fee for serving papers, but your husband paid me an extra 100 to handle it this way. Frank? Frank gave you $100? Stella looked around, growing anxious. Where is Frank? Don't know. He paid me to make love with you and then serve you. Given the circumstances, I'd guess he's already left. As Stella opened the envelope and saw its contents, she wailed, No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry, Phil said, as he exited the room and headed for the front door. In the bedroom, Stella hurriedly dressed, tears streaming down her face as she slipped on her slippers and left the room. I could hear her moving frantically through the house, calling out, Frank? Frank? Where are you? Her voice grew increasingly panicked as she searched from room to room. Eventually, she reached the basement stairs and called down, Frank? Frank? Are you down there? I didn't respond, and I heard her start down the steps. When she reached the bottom and saw me, she asked, Frank? I've been calling for you. Why haven't you answered? And what's this nonsense about a divorce? I pressed play on the recorder. The color drained from her face as she heard. Frank's definitely that type. I boss him around all the time. Dominating him like that really turns me on. As the rest of the recorded conversations played, Stella seemed to deflate, her composure crumbling like a balloon losing air. She looked away from me, sobbing uncontrollably. I simply stared at her and said, Did it come as a shock that I'm not the clueless doofus you thought I was? Any more questions about why I'm getting a divorce? I stood up and added, See you around, Stell. Or maybe not. I gathered up the tape recorder and the video recorder, which had captured her session with Phil and her time with Jared. With everything in hand, I left the house and headed to my apartment. I spent Saturday drafting another list of tasks. I needed to make my new apartment feel more like home and start the process of putting the house up for sale. Stella would need to contact the utility companies to set up new accounts, as item number 2 on my list was to have everything shut off and removed from my name. If I priced the house right, it should sell quickly. However, if Stella decided to keep it, she'd have to buy me out. Thankfully, we didn't live in a state with those ridiculous no-fault divorce laws. I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery, and my attorney assured me that I'd come out ahead of a 50-50 split. He mentioned that even the female judge assigned to our case would likely be displeased with the way Stella disparaged me in her recorded conversations. The videos of her with Jared and Phil would just add a final touch of satisfaction. After golf, I stopped by TGI Fridays on Lamont for a bite to eat. While I was enjoying my meal, a striking redhead approached my table and said, Frank Marley, right? I nodded, and she continued, You don't know me, but I'm Barbara Collins. I wanted to thank you for saving my marriage. Saved your marriage? I'm not sure I follow. It's what you did to Stella. It opened my eyes to what might happen if I'd let myself get caught up in the manipulative tactics Anna was promoting. The idea of controlling someone was tempting, but it wasn't worth risking my relationship with Brian. When I heard about Stella, it was a wake-up call. I'm sorry about what happened with you and Stella, but it helped me and Brian. Take care. With that, she turned and walked away. I wasn't surprised to see half a dozen missed calls from Stella on my cell phone, which I promptly deleted. I left the phone at the apartment while I played golf on Sunday and returned to find a dozen more missed messages from her. I knew I'd have to talk to her soon, probably the next day, since I couldn't have her calling me at work repeatedly. Her first call came right after I had unlocked the door. Seeing the home phone number on the caller ID, I answered, What do you want, Stella? I don't want a divorce, Frank. You don't understand what was going on. We need to sit down and talk so I can explain. I love you, Frank, and you know I do. We just need to work this out. You love me? Really? That's quite a way to show it. You told me you were taking night classes for a promotion, but you were actually spending 2 nights a week as your boss's plaything. I can clearly see the love there. And you really showed me love when you slept with Eddie and Jared at Anna's place. Let's not forget all the love I heard in the phone calls between you, Anna, and Barb that I recorded. Yes, Stella, I'm fully aware of how much you love me. You don't understand, Frank, and that's why we need to talk. Please come home. I don't want a divorce, and I'll fight it. I'll make it so expensive for you that you'll end up dropping it. Ah, there's that love shining through again. Here's the deal, Stell. Go ahead and fight it if you want. You'll need to hire an attorney, and those don't come cheap. You're going to need every penny to cover the house payment, gas, phone, and lights. By the way, I've had those utilities taken out of my name, and they'll be shut off at the end of the month. That's 2 weeks away, so start figuring out how to keep them running. Let's see how you can hurt me. There are no kids, so no leverage there. You make as much as I do, so no alimony issues. I've filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, and I have the evidence to back it up. And don't forget, we have that prenuptial agreement. My father made sure you signed it before we got married, and one of its clauses specifies that in the case of a divorce due to adultery, the offending party only leaves with what they brought into the marriage. So, go ahead, Stella. Get yourself an attorney and fight it if you like. I've got to get back to work. Goodbye, Stella. That wasn't the end of it, though. The next day when I left work, Stella was parked behind my car, and since I was parked nose into the building, I couldn't just ignore her and leave. What do you want, Stella? Quite simply, you. I do not want a divorce. I know you don't think I love you, but you are wrong. Bullshit, Stella. I told you the other day that I have over a month's worth of phone calls between you and Anna that tell me exactly how you feel about your clueless twit of a husband. That's not true, Frank. You don't have anything that proves that. What you have are just things I said to Anna because that's what she wanted to hear. Anna has a deep-seated hatred for men, which she made clear to me from the first week I met her. I was shocked when she moved back here, and I learned she was married. She married Dennis because she saw him as a way to take out her frustrations on men. I can't really blame her. Given her past, I might have felt the same way. Again, Stella, bullshit. If she hated men so much, why was she involved with Eddie and Jared? She was involved with them, but it wasn't because she liked them. She used them to torment Dennis. It was almost a form of retribution, like the Christ died for your sins idea. Dennis was paying for all the wrongs men had done to her. Her father abused her whenever he came home drunk, and after he died in an accident, her mother remarried. The new husband had 2 sons, and when her mother was hospitalized, the stepfather abused Anna. Her stepbrothers witnessed this and decided they wanted her too, so they all took advantage of her while her mother was away. They knew they'd be in serious trouble if she went to the police, so they recorded their assaults and doctored the footage to make it appear as if she was consenting. They cut out the parts where she resisted and only kept the segments where her body seemed to respond. They showed her these manipulated tapes, threatening to release them publicly if she reported them or accused them of rape. One night, while they were asleep, she attacked them with a baseball bat, stole their money, and left. Since then, she's harbored a deep resentment toward men. Everything I told her was just what she wanted to hear. Frank, I didn't mean any of it, not a single word. Think about it. Have I ever disrespected you? Yeah, Stella. As a matter of fact, you have. How and when? Every time you came home from work after making love with John. You admit to cheating on me with your boss? Yes, Frank, but it never affected us. Did you ever notice a lack of love or affection from me? Did I ever fall short in the love or sex departments? No, I never did. But you did cheat on me with your boss. I didn't see it as cheating, at least not at first. Not at first? We needed money, Frank. Business wasn't great, and you were talking about possibly having to close up shop. We were behind on bills, and getting that promotion meant an extra $1,000 a month. When John made the offer, I took it. As far as I know, his wife had their baby 6 or 7 months ago, and yet you're still involved with him. They're going through a divorce. The baby's father, who's of Asian descent, kicked her out. He asked me to continue our arrangement, and I initially said no. But then he offered me a $500 raise, the company car I've been driving for the last 6 months, and a company credit card for gas and upkeep. You'd never have known, so I agreed. To keep things discreet, I only let him be intimate with me at work. He wanted to use a bed, but I refused because going to a hotel or motel would risk someone seeing us and possibly telling you. Instead, he bought a couch for the office that converts into a bed, and he started parking his motorhome at work. I was very careful to keep everything from you. How did you find out? I told her about overhearing her conversation with Anna at the barbecue, which led me to question what else she might have said about me, and how that eventually uncovered everything. So even if I were to accept your excuse about the affair with John being financially motivated, it doesn't excuse what you did with Eddie and Jared. That was outright cheating, and you know it. No, it wasn't. I didn't get involved with Eddie until after you had given me permission. To me, that open marriage discussion was your way of giving me the green light. Once I saw that you were genuinely okay with it, I brought them home with me. From my perspective, I was following what you had set up. I wouldn't have been with Eddie and Jared if I didn't believe you were fine with it. You told me it was okay as long as I came home to you. I did what I did with Eddie and Jared at Anna's place and then came back to you, giving you as much as I gave them. I'll quit my job and I'll cut off all contact with Anna. Please, Frank, don't divorce me. I can't bear losing you. If you loved me so much, why were you so intent on turning me into a willing cuckold? Frank, I never wanted you to do anything you didn't want to. It was a major turn-on for me, and you didn't mind because it made you rock my world. John was a huge mistake, but I honestly had our future in mind when I took that job. The promotion and the extra money were meant for us. I got carried away, and I'm truly sorry. But I always came home and gave you more than I gave him. I made a mistake, and I'm begging you to forgive me. Don't leave me, Frank. Please don't leave me. It's a nice fairy tale you're spinning, Stella, but the truth is, you're still a cheater. No matter how you rationalize your affair with your boss, it was still cheating. So what can I do to make amends without losing you? I love you, Frank. I swear I do, and I always have. Maybe you do, but what I know for sure is that what you've done has made it nearly impossible for me to stay with you. I could never trust you again. How could I be sure you wouldn't be unfaithful again, thinking I'd never find out? They say once a cheater, always a cheater. I swear to you, Frank, I'll never do it again. You swore to God to be a loving and faithful wife in front of 83 family members and friends, but you broke that vow. So I see no reason to believe that you won't break this one too. We're done, Stella. There's nothing you can do to make this right. Now please move your car so I can leave. Please, Frank. I can't live without you. Then I guess I'd better make sure your life insurance is up to date. I turned and started walking away. Where are you going, Frank? Since you won't move your car, I'm going inside to call a cab. Please, Frank, don't leave me. I didn't look back. I went into the building and called for a taxi.